I think everybody obviously looks at Boston as an overwhelming favorite and as a team that is really deep and overall, is a better all-around basketball team. Is this an instance where Dallas, you think, can handle Boston straight up, can beat them straight up, or will they have to count on a little bit of Boston beating themselves?
I do think they'll have to count on a little bit of Boston beating themselves, which has happened, at times over this year. I think the key for the Mavericks, honestly, is keeping these games close in the fourth quarter. Because if they can keep these games at one possession, two possession games, they have probably the two best closers in this series. I mean, Luka and Kyrie, you can argue about, is Kyrie as good as Tatum? Is he as good as Jaylen Brown? End of game situations, both those guys are going to be the best closers on the floor. I do think it's going to be challenging to keep some of these games close because Boston, we saw, regular season, postseason, they've got one of the best point differentials that you'll see. That their three-point shooting makes them capable of just blowing the doors off you at any given time. And that three-point shooting is only going to get better with Porzingis back into the lineup. So there's definitely, a legitimate concern of, you get in the middle of the fourth quarter, it's a 15-point game at some point. But if they can find a way to keep these games close, I trust Luka and Kyrie to come up big in closing second situations more than I trust anybody else on the floor. And I think that, to me, is their pathway to victory.
We were talking about this earlier, the idea of Jason Tatum, and you mentioned them being two great closers there, Kyrie and Luka. Do you feel like Tatum has that kind of killer instinct or finish mentality that a lot of the greats do? Because we were talking about it's like he just seems like a really nice guy, and we don't see necessarily that ultra competitiveness that we see a lot of times outwardly from some of the top players.
I think he has it, and look, I'm reminded of something. You remember when Kobe was doing those, what do you call it, those details videos back in early in the 7-8 years ago. He did one on Tatum at the time, and he kind of articulated all the things that Tatum did well. And I remember Tatum told me after the fact that he watched that like a dozen times, like as soon as it came out, like over and over again. Like he is part of the Kobe generation. Like he grew up watching Kobe, wanting to play like Kobe. And no, he doesn't have that same kind of Mamba mentality that Kobe had. But I do think he has that instinct. And I do think he has the desire to have the ball in his hands late games and to make plays. And I think part of the reason we're questioning that now is because the Celtics just haven't had to play in many of these games. It was like early March when they last played a meaningful game in the regular season. They were like 10-plus games up on the second-place team in the East, before April even hit. They had the best record in the NBA locked in weeks before the end of the season. He hasn't had to do that this year. But I've seen him do it a little bit in these playoffs, and I do think if it comes down to it, he's got the skill set and he's got the right mentality to get buckets when he needs to. I just think on the other side, you've got two guys that are proven to be great at it. And I think Tatum is really good. I think Luka and Kyrie are great.
What's more stunning, Dan Hurley to the Lakers or this Kyrie that he's become?
It's a good question. Just because I covered Kyrie so closely in Boston, this evolution is definitely a surprise, right? And it is an evolution. Like, this is not, and you guys have had a bird's eye view of it for a year and a half. Everything that people are saying about him down there is real. He is a leader in that locker room. He has figured out a way to make it work at the highest level alongside Luka Doncic. Those two things were 100% not true during his time in Boston. He was not a leader in that Celtics locker room. He couldn't make it work alongside other good players. And that's what ultimately, cost the Celtics what should have been, a championship level year in 2018-19. Now, some of what Kyrie has evolved into, came out of necessity, right? He hit free agency last summer, and there was one team willing to make him a $100 million+ offer. I think getting that kind of reality check certainly changed him. I also think, though, having Jason Kidd there, a peer, a kindred spirit, somebody grew up watching in New Jersey, had a huge impact on him. So, look, this evolution is definitely surprising, but there's no BS about it. You talk to people in Dallas And I spent some time chatting with them over the last couple of days here in Boston. And, they can't say enough good things about the player and the leader that he's been.
Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated, join us here at 105 through the Fan. All right, give me a guy outside the Luka, Kyrie, Brown, and Tatum for each team. One for each team. If they have a huge series, it's going to be really, really tough for the other team to win.
Look, I think P.J. Washington and Derek Lively, to name two, are guys I'm going to be watching closely in Game 1. I don't think Boston is going to send the double teams at Luka that we saw Minnesota do. I don't think they're going to trap. They're just too good with their wing defenders. Jrue Holiday might be the best wing defender in the NBA. I mean, players think that. Jaylen Brown is up there, and Jaylen Brown's got great size to match up with Luka as well. I think they're going to count on these guys to play Luka and Kyrie, straight up, which I think will eliminate a lot of those, obviously the open rim runs for Lively, and he was perfect, literally, in that last series. And I think P.J. Washington won't get as many open corner threes as he got in the last series. Those guys have to find a way to produce. I mean, the reality of this situation, guys, is that while I think Luka's the best player in this series and Kyrie might be the second best, he's at worst probably third, 6 of the top 8 guys in the series are Celtics. I mean, that's just a reality. And I think those guys like Washington and Lively, they've got to find a way to horn their way into that mix. They've got to have double-digit scoring nights, high efficiency, good defense. They have got to make profound impacts on this series for Dallas to win.
What's your pick?
I think it goes 7, and I think Boston wins in 7. I think a lot of these games are going to be ultra competitive, and I think Dallas is going to pull at least one of them off in Boston, and again at home, based on Luka and Kyrie being closers. I really think we're going to be talking about how they finish games over the course of this series. But a Game 7 in Boston, I think home court advantage is going to be a big factor.
Chris Mannix here, previewing the finals. Also is all over boxing. Your thoughts on an event in our backyard that is now getting delayed in Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul?
I'm stunned. I'm stunned that a soon-to-be 58-year-old is dealing with a physical issue that prevented him from getting into a heavyweight fight. I mean, look.
Was the fight going to be for real, Chris?
Well, I mean, look, the fact that the state of Texas sanctioned this as an official fight is an embarrassment. It just is. You want to let these two guys go out there and fight a Roy Jones, Mike Tyson-like exhibition, fine. But don't sanction it as an official fight. I don't care what size gloves you're letting them wear. I don't care how long the rounds are. It is stupid to sanction that as a professional fight. And look, they're saying it's going to be rescheduled. What I was told was that there are 2 dates that they have been looking at, one in mid-October, one in mid-November, both at Cowboy Stadium. They want to bring that fight there. But I can tell you that, fighters on the undercard have been getting very nervous over the last week. They've been looking at other options. And we saw one, a kid named Floyd Schofield, announced on social media that he is going to fight July 6th. He was supposed to be on that undercard fighting a kid named Ashton Silk. So you've got fighters out there kind of looking for lifeboats because there's skepticism. Even if this fight gets rescheduled, the guy's going to be 58 years old. It's not, outside of the realm of possibility he has another physical problem in the next 3 or 4 months to prevent this fight from ultimately happening. So right now, I do think they're going to officially announce something, maybe as soon as tomorrow, that puts this fight back on the official calendar. But don't put a ton of money on the fight moving forward.
You're a beast, man. Thanks for joining us again. We appreciate it and enjoy the finals.
Anytime, guys.